When I was in high school, they would give you like an egg and they'll say, take care of this egg, and that's your baby. Is that enough preparation? You're talking about, okay, preparing for your bodies, the physical change, the mental change. How can you prepare women?
You have to be true to yourself. What can I handle? What I can handle? What do I have to give out? What do I have to ask help from? So you have to constantly ask yourself, what am I doing to myself? And how do I become who I want to be? As a mom, if you have any goals to accomplish, you have to be organized. If you're not organized, you're going to have a very terrible, stressful life. I've lost a lot. I lost a lot in 11 years of not pursuing my career. I know where I would have been by now. I'm literally just barely starting my career as a nurse practitioner. Every woman will pursue whatever they're going after based on the resources available to them. So the resources available to you determine if you're going to take it life slow or fast. If your home is not stable, you're not going to have goals. You have no energy to pursue any goals when you are mentally unstable.
One of the things that I hear you saying is for women, you have to know your capacity, right?
Sure.
And I almost wonder, this is going off a little bit, and like, you seem very self-aware to know who you are, but how can others like get to that point? Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Busy Moms Get It Done podcast. My name is Esther Shitu. I am a mom to 3 beautiful girls and a journalist. This podcast is all about encouraging moms to gain practical tips on how they can continually pursue their careers and be the moms that they want to be. So if that's who you are, please like, follow, share, and subscribe if you are on YouTube as well. Today, I am so excited to welcome Ms. Tosin Addeh. She is an APRN, or Advanced Practice Registered Nurse, with more than 17 years in medicine. She's also a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner, a mom to 3 girls as well. Mom girl team here, a wife, and a health coach. She is so busy, but she is here to join us to have a conversation about her journey. And I am so happy to have her. Thank you so much for joining me.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure.
So I usually start the podcast by asking my guests about their childhood and getting into the weeds of what they envision motherhood to be as a child. But before I do, can you tell the audience a little bit about who you are? How did you get to where you are now?
My name is Tosin. She already did a lot of the introduction. I am a mental health nurse practitioner. I have been in the medical field for 17 years, and this year, September next month, will be 18 years. I started my career early. I was barely 18 when I got into nursing school, and I graduated at the age of 21. Young and just aspiring. I was born in Nigeria, and I moved to the United States at the age of 18. So I went straight to college, and I was very focused because of the background where I was from. My parents didn't have the financial capability to do a lot for us growing up. So when I got into the US, I told myself that I would do my best to make sure that I get the best that I can get and be productive to support my parents. So when it comes to my childhood, growing up in Nigeria, I was raised with a lot of people, like the way we are, like literally families, uncles, aunties, my parents. So I grew up in that kind of a setting. And that allowed me, when I came to the US, to see what other life looked like and made me to be a little bit more focused.
No, I like that. A lot to unpack there. So you grew up in Nigeria all the way till the time you were 18. And then you came here at 18 and you're like, let's just go right into nursing. Was it because you had always wanted to be a nurse, or was there other career paths that you explored or thought
So
about?
growing up, you know how sometimes your parents instill financial stability.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, because my mom came to the US before me, and she would be like, Tosin, life is hard. When you come to the
Mm.
US, when you do anything in the medical field, you'll be financially stable. But also, my aunt was a nurse in Nigeria, my mom's immediate sister. Whenever she visits, she wear a white coat and she has those two little pens on her pocket and a cap, and I will admire her all day. And she will come home with some beautiful stories about what happened at work and the patients. I felt like, she's not bored. Those are interesting. So I became intrigued into the
Mm.
profession. And all my families were all in the medical field. Most of us are in the medical field. So it's just like we breed medical in my family. My siblings are mostly in the medical field. We have, so it's just part of us.
No, that's good. That's so good. I wonder though, you've been in it for so long. Did you always want to be like in the, I guess, psychiatric health part of
Okay,
it,
so
or how did
before
you get into
so
that?
what actually brought me into mental health? Initially, I was, okay, first of all, I'm an acute care nurse, critical care. So I work in a very intense, stressful environment.
Wow.
I did this for many years, and then immediately COVID hit. I was one of the COVID nurses in the ICU.
Wow.
I saw so many patients. I can't even count how many lives that I bagged
Mm.
when they passed away. That was emotional for me. Immediately COVID ended. Actually, right before COVID, I was also at the verge of going back to school. I was tired of bedside. I was tired of running around, 12-hour shift, working 4 days a week, 3 days a week. And it was a lot on me. And with pregnancy, I go to work full blown. I don't have my kids till like 2 weeks before my due date. I worked the entire time for three of my babies. The last two pregnancies, I was actually in the intensive care unit. I was a neurotrauma nurse for 5 years and stepped down and became just a regular ICU nurse. So those 7 years in the ICU, I had my last two babies in the intensive care unit. So when it comes to like the burden of having to work and raise kids and a family, I've been through it. So at that time, immediately COVID hit, I had already started my mental health nurse practitioner school, and I wanted to wind down. I needed something else um to bring me peace. I felt like the fast pace of being in the acute care setting was no longer for me. I needed something that was more relaxing to my mental health and to peace. And as time goes on, I think during this podcast, I will talk more about the crisis that I went through personally that led me to mental health.
Yeah, that's interesting. Before we do talk about that, I wanted to know because you came to the US at 18, you went right into nursing. Did you, before that, did you ever think, I'm gonna be a mom? What was your perception of motherhood? Because you mentioned that like your mom was already here, which to my audience, my mom also came, but my mom came when I was like 6 months old. Another story. So how did you like make that transition from like going to through your career? Did you always want to be a mom, or were you like it just happened to be something that you fell into?
I've always wanted to be a mom. Growing with my nephews, nieces, and actually watching my aunt had kids and growing
Mm.
around people, I knew I've always wanted to be a mom. But my expectation of motherhood was not very clear. You actually don't know until you actually get into motherhood to understand what it feels like. You will have friends. It's just like a single girl, and then you have a friend who's married and have kids. Most single ladies will not really comprehend the exact life of a mother. You know, this busy, it's crazy, but every woman comes into motherhood, and once you have your child, your body is going to change. And the way motherhood would treat me might not treat you the same. So when it comes to expectation of motherhood, I knew it was going to be stressful, but what it would do to my body, I was not expecting that. And no one prepared me for those changes. And I do think the new generation of kids and our children coming, we need to mentally prepare them for what to expect so they don't go into shock. And sometimes that's why after having kids, these women go into major depressive disorder. They're very depressed. They don't know what to do with their lives. No matter what, depression will come at some point. But if you're well prepared, you have an idea of what to expect, then you go in for it and know how to seek help. I knew I always wanted to be a mom, but the overwhelming burden, the sacrifices, the sleepless night,
Yeah.
I didn't know how much it was going to cost me.
Yeah.
That's just, so you have to go into it mentally prepared and have good support system. Mother is going to treat everyone differently. Your support system matters a lot.
I wonder, because I was thinking, how do you prepare the young girls, right? Because, like, I was thinking when I was in high school, they didn't do this for me. They kind of did. They would give you like an egg, and they'll say, "Take care of this egg, and that's your baby," so to speak. Or they will give you like a baby that will be
Yeah.
crying all night
In
long to kind of
Texas, they will
prepare
give
you.
babies, yes, they give that to
So
them.
I'm
I
like,
didn't have that
is
experience.
is that enough preparation for you to know, like, for the because you're talking about, okay, preparing for your bodies, physical change, the
So
mental change.
you just, so
How can you prepare women?
I think to prepare a woman, you have to let her know clearly that it's a sacrifice of life.
Mm-hmm.
And will I say sacrifice of life and death?
Yeah.
It's scary to use that word, but that's just the reality. You are going to have sleepless nights, but the joy of seeing your own child gives you the strength to keep going. And that's why some women don't know when to stop and then they break down.
Mm.
You have to know when to stop and take care of yourself. That's just the key, because seeing your child, you don't want your child to suffer. So you will go extra mile to do what it takes to make them comfortable. You wouldn't mind doing that. But then a few days along, you fall sick and you don't have good support system. So to prepare yourself, you just have to mentally know that it's not going to be an easy route. But when you get there, if you have questions, you ask, because mother is going to treat everyone differently. So it's not a clear slate. It's not a clear plate. It's not a clean route. It's not a straight route for every mom. When I had my own kids, my first daughter, I had postpartum eclampsia. I was a
Mm.
nurse, but no one prepared me for postpartum eclampsia. We were taught pre-eclampsia, where you have the HELP syndrome and all of this. But mine happened after, and it happened 7 days after.
Wow.
Just actually literally few hours after the baby dedication, a day after. I had like all my symptoms, but luckily it was managed outpatient. I was not admitted. But my second baby and third baby, I had to go back in the hospital. Those are my personal experiences. So for every mom, you're not even going to know if you will be one of those statistics that will experience these changes or that will experience medical health changes after childbirth. So which is why you have to mentally prepare yourself that things are not going to be the same. But when you do go in, who are my support system? And thank God for research. Thank God for a lot of resources out there. You can always seek help for anything or any symptoms that comes your way. If I prepare you now or prepare any young daughters, no matter what, they're going to forget. Because one, your body will react differently to
Mm-hmm.
motherhood. Your personality and my personality is different. I can be like, for me, I love to rest. I enjoy my sleep. My sleep is very important to me. I tell people all the time, I don't joke with my sleep. So does that make me lazy? No, it's just that I know I need it and I would get it. Sometimes I might not be available to the world or to a lot of activities, a lot of things. I'm available to my kids and my health and my goals. So it's just a balance between yourself, your environment, your children, your family, your friends, and everyone around you. So I cannot just say this is what motherhood is like for mother A, B, or C. There is a bracket, but it's just going to be different. When you get there, seek the right help, seek the right resources, ask questions, meet the right people, hang with the right friends, and that will be your best get.
As you were speaking, I wanted to know, when you became a mom or as you were doing your nursing career, did that ever bother you of like, how am I gonna do nursing and also do motherhood?
I became a registered nurse. I already pretty much met the level of my nursing career to a point where if I didn't go back to school, I was okay before I had kids. So that was what helped me. I was already I had my kids after I had my bachelor's degree in nursing. But going back to school for my master's degree, that was where the challenges came in. So it took me time before I went back to school. It took me about 11 to 12 years.
Wow.
So when I had my bachelor's in 2010, I did not go back to school till 2021. But in the middle of those breaks, I was always doing what you call continuing education. So my brain was still very, what will I call it? I was still using my brain a lot. Like as a nurse, we never stop learning. As a mom, if you have to go back to school, you have to be true to yourself. This is just the plain truth. No one knows you better than you know yourself. You want to be alive for your kids, so you have to do what works best for you. I will always say, young daughters, try as much as possible to get your bachelor's degree off the way before you start having kids. Because then at least I by the age of 22, 23, I was already done my bachelor's. So I didn't get married till I was 27. So basically, at least the first years of your 20s, use it and get as much education as you want. That way, when you start having a family, you know you've gone ahead of a lot of barriers that can prevent you from accomplishing your lifetime goals. So when I went back to school, if I choose not to go back, I could just be a bedside nurse and enjoy raising my kids. But I felt I needed more for myself and I wanted to actualize more and I had more potentials and I felt there are more lives out there I could touch as a mental health provider. So I waited till when my youngest baby was about, I think she was 3 years old, and I went back to school. And then my oldest daughter was already 6 or 7. So this time I didn't have any babies around. All I had to do was instruct them. And to go back to school as a mom, you have to be very organized. If you are not organized, forget it. Even if it doesn't have to be you going back to school, as a mom, if you have any goals to accomplish, you have to be organized. If you're not organized, you're going to have a very terrible, stressful life. Number one, organization skills as a mom. One of these is my iPad, and another one that I have is a pen and a paper. You have to write your to-do list down because your mind is busy. Your mind is constantly busy as a mom. You have so many things coming through your head. Doctor's appointment, the kids going back to school, list. So you have to be organized. Sometimes you could have there was a time. So every season as a mom, you have different barriers that you need to overcome. So with different season comes different skills you have to use. When I had 2 kids, I had different skills. When I had 3 kids, I had different skills. So every step of motherhood will require different skills to overcome those barriers. And always you have to be true to yourself. What can I handle? What I can't handle? What do I have to give out? What do I have to ask help from? So you have to constantly ask yourself, what am I doing to myself? And how do I become who I want to be? So to be accomplished, to have your goals met as your own personal goals, not just be a mommy goals or having kids and being a wife, or your own personal goals, you have to be organized. So what I did, for example, no one taught me this. I would sit down some days and cry. I would just cry. I'm like, God, I can't take this no more. I can't do this. And then in that moment, when I'm done crying, sometimes you have to cry. You cry it out. When you cry it out, your brain releases some stress. Then you can now think clearly. You feel better. But if you don't feel better and you continue to cry and cry and cry, then you need to seek help outside yourself. But in my experiences, sometimes when I cry, after I cry, I take a nap. When I wake up, my head is clear. When I'm done crying, then I ask myself, what actually is making you to cry? What is this problem? One example that I did that I know for sure has changed my life was having my kids become more hands-on with things. For example, the dresser, I have, you don't have to be rich. When I first started, I bought plastic dressers, like 4 stages. The first one is just underwear, small shirt, like the inner shirt that they have to wear, or any short pants on the top one. Then the second one is just tops, like tops or inner bras and stuff like that. And then the third one is for their pants, like the shorts. And then the last one is probably for uniforms or anything else or little things. And then in the back of the door, I bought this pocket thing. So whenever they come in, if there's shoes, they put the shoes there. Or because I have girls, so hair clips, like their whatever they use to design their hair, they put it there, or socks. So when I know where things are and they need to clean up, I'm like, hey, pick this up, put it there, put it this, because they know where things belong. And then I bought a basket for dirty laundries. When it's time to do laundries, I ask them, go pick up your dirty clothes and put them in the basket and take them downstairs or take them to the laundry section. They know what their laundry clothes look like. They know what's dirty and what's not dirty. Sometimes I still go after them and pick up the dirty clothes. But if I'm overwhelmed, I just let them do that. And then when the clothes are dried, I tell them, okay, go fold your clothes. They already know this belongs here. So this time, it's easier for them to know what to do. And I don't have to baby every action step. And then I choose like once a month or twice a month, and I do a general cleaning of the house. Sometimes it takes me like 6-7 hours to clean an entire house. And the reason I chose to do that, I have girls and I love shopping. If I'm going to spend $400 to get a cleaner to come clean the house, so once they go to bed, like around 8, 9, they go to bed. Sometimes I'm up to 1 a.m. and I'm cleaning. And by the time they wake up, the house is clean. And that money, I use it and I buy me a nice purse and I will rock it. Or I can ask their dad, babe, I just cleaned the entire house. What's my share? And he will say, okay, take this $200. I love it. I have my own money. But you see that extra money from your spouse?
It hits different.
It's different. And I spend it with all joy.
I love it. I was wondering as you were speaking, because I love what you're saying. Basically, you're saying that if you're going to go back to school or if you have any goal, you have to kind of include your children, right?
Yes.
You have to make sure that they make life easy for you. I wonder in the years that, like, when they were very, very little, right? Because I can tell, and basically from your post, like, you're very, like, goal oriented. And so, like, you have a goal in mind, right? How did you keep yourself from, like, going after that goal right away and you're like,
So
let me just focus
I'm
on
not,
this. My
I'm
goal
not,
is coming.
I am almost, I will be turning 40 next year.
Yay.
So they say a fool at 40 is a fool forever. In my 20s, I was very young, having kids. I had goals, but I was limited because of my kids. When you know that you have children and you have a future, having kids alone changes your mindset. You want to retire. You don't want to leave a burden for your children. Imagine raising my 3 girls and having to be a caregiver for my parents. That's a lot. So, in the future to come, in 20 years from now, I don't want my 3 daughters to be overwhelmed having to take care of me. I see a lot in the hospital setting, and some some patients are like weeping and crying like, I feel like I'm a burden to my children. I'm like, no, you're not a burden. So I can imagine what it feels like. And as you get older, your body's not the same. There's going to be a time or a day you will be sick. And having financial burden, it's a lot. So in the future, I want to be a little bit financially more stable and not have to depend on so much on my kids. The generation we are in now is not the generation our parents were. Back in the days when you had kids, those were your insurance. Now, you are your own insurance. You are the one who will provide for your future. When you are older, your kids are busy raising their own children. So, when I think of that, it gives me the zeal to keep going. And thank God for a very supportive spouse that I have. I have the strength to also stay focused and go. Some women don't have the support. And if your home is not stable, you're not going to have goals. You have no energy to pursue any goals when you are mentally unstable. So your mental health is your goal. Once you have peace of mind, you can chase any goals that you have. So the priority to any woman is to have peace of mind and a stable mental health. Then you can think outside the box. If you're depressed, you're not going to think outside the box. If you have constant anxiety, you're not going to think outside the box. So your mental health is very important when it comes to growth.
I definitely agree with that. I would say that up until this year, I was just surviving. And until like my mental health was like cleared
Yes.
and the stress was gone, I it was when like God was like, okay, now I
You
can give you
see?
ideas.
Yeah.
But before then I'm like, what am I doing? I'm just living. I'm just surviving. Um I had a question as you were talking about giving your girls responsibility and including them. You're originally from Nigeria. In what way are you helping to incorporate the culture that you were born with into your girls? Because they're in a different culture. Not only are they in a different generation
True.
than the one we're.
So, first of all, they already know they have African parents. And sometimes recently I noticed they correct all my English all the time. And I'm like, these kids. So, first of all, what I usually do, in the morning when I'm in the kitchen and they come approach me, now they come and greet me. Before, as kids, they didn't know. They just wake up and I'm like, did you greet mommy? Did you greet daddy? So that's number one. And then when they see someone older than them, I said, you try to greet them. And also, I do my best to teach them my culture and tell them stories of how I was brought up. That way they don't get a cultural shock when they visit Nigeria in the future. And also, other ways I do instill culture in them when I read the Bible, that's also a good foundation. And I do my best to allow them to work to cooperate, because different kids, different child has different personalities. And that can also affect the culture and the norm in the house. So I try to teach them, your sister doesn't like this. You know, this is where your sister is. So you have to accommodate each other. Or even as young as they are, I teach them boundaries. I let them understand boundaries, not to the point where you neglect the other and neglect their feelings. No. If at some point they feel like they really want to take a nap, or they want to rest, or they feel overstimulated, and you're overstimulating them, that, for me, that's a culture right there. We didn't have all this culture back home. So I learned from my mistake and how I was brought up, and try to refinance, like to try to do it in a way that will benefit them. So I don't know. That's what I do. Yeah.
I wonder if you took you mentioned earlier that there was a reason that you moved from being a bedside to going to ICU, right? I was gonna ask if you can share that. And also, what would you have
Okay. You mean moving from the bedside to become a mental health provider?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. And then what would you advise moms who are just starting to have kids that those first couple years, would you tell them to a little bit slow down before going after, or would you say, how would you advise them?
So every woman is different. First of all, I will always say, you know yourself, you know your boundaries, you know what you can handle and what you cannot handle. And support system matters a lot. I didn't have great support system. My mom was very young. My mom had her first grandchild when she was barely 46. Yes. My sister had her first child when she was 23, 24. So that made my mom a very young grandma. So imagine having to start raising grandkids. And then when it got to my turn, she's already busy. So, and the older she gets, she doesn't have that much energy as it is to raise other kids. She has her own life. And with the way the America system is, everyone is busy. So because of the lack of support, for me, I took life a little bit slow. I could not go back to school fully when I was raising my kids. Some women would do it. They would go back to school with little kids. Is it rough? Yes. But their support system is also different. So every woman will pursue whatever they're going after based on the resources available to them. So the resources available to you determine if you're going to take it life slow or fast. For me, there's never going to be a good time. So sometimes you just have to jump in, and if it's too hot, you step back.
I agree. I agree. I think you have to think about your situation. So I am so grateful for your time, and we are wrapping it up a little bit. But I wanted to ask, uh, what sacrifices did you make with motherhood or your career for both to exist? What sacrifices do you see other women making?
There was certain time in my life I didn't even go to an event. Like if
Mm.
people asked me to come for an event, I couldn't be there. I was either home raising my kids, or I was at work, or I was catching up on rest. There were times I would say at least almost 4 years of my life, I probably attended maybe 1 or 2 events in 4 years. I didn't really go out, but I went out with my kids, with my husband. We'll go out to a restaurant. We'll enjoy barbecue at home. We'll do things. But to be out there, and because it's overwhelming going out with kids, it's a lot of stress. Pushing car seats, like it's a lot of work. So there was those seasons in my life where I didn't really do a lot out there. And if they invite me, I send gift, I order gift, I give them a call, I let them know I'm not available. And really, I was drowning, so I could not be there. And then, because if you don't do this, you're going to go into stress, and stress causes a lot of health issues in the life of women. For example, one major stress that occurs to women is hormone imbalance. Hormone imbalance is very common with women. And how do you know you have hormone imbalance? Persistent headaches around your cycle. And sometimes spotting, huge bleeding, or menstrual cycle lasting 7, 8, 9 days. Those are, or spotting, like maybe you spot in the middle of your period. Those are symptoms of hormone imbalances. And sometimes bloating. So cortisol stress, sometimes it's good because it allows your body to fly and fight. So when something bad wants to happen, you're going to fly from the scene. And it's the cortisol stress that sends adrenaline to your body. But then the cortisol is not a good one. So there's fight and flight, and then there is the cortisol that makes you to be very unstable and stressed. And then once this stress comes into your body, you're not sleeping well, you eat and you're not able to lose weight even when you exercise, and then you're having high blood pressure. So many things happens when you have cortisol imbalance stress. That is just the culprit of a lot of health issues. And how to avoid stuff like this: the right food, eating right, avoid too much of carbs, eat something that have anti-inflammatory effect in your body. Those are the ways you can balance your hormone. And also fish oil is a good one. And as a woman, you have to have some list of healthy vitamins you take on a daily basis, or at least 3 or 4 times a week. It's very important. You have to supplement. Once you start having kids, your body is not the same.
I think one of the things that I hear you saying is, for women, you have to know your capacity, right?
Sure.
And I almost wonder, this is going off a little bit, and like, you seem very self-aware to know who you are, but how can others like get to that point? Because not everyone is as self-aware that, like,
I,
this is not my,
I
because
literally,
I'm guilty of being like,
I
I'll take
actually,
this.
I actually recorded a video a few days ago on self-awareness, and I've not posted it yet. I have tons of videos I record and I sometimes don't post it. Self-awareness is something I would teach myself when I was in my early 20s. Self-awareness is the ability to know when something is not right or good for you, or the ability to critique yourself, to think deep about things. So the way you build self-awareness, you're going to make mistakes. Once you make mistake, do not ignore that symptoms. You're going to feel bad. You're going to feel horrible. Allow it. Feel it. When you feel that pain of the loss or what you feel like, or you could just maybe you went out with a friend, right? And in the midst of going out with a group of friends, and you did something that doesn't seem mature, right? And then someone will say something, and they say something, and you'll be like, wow. Sometimes at that moment, you might just like laugh it off or argue and stuff like that. But when you go home, you think about it. I think next time this is how I should react and do this. That's self-awareness. And another thing about self-awareness, how do you eat? Before your cycle, how does your body react? You don't just leave and you don't just be like a walking person, just walking and not knowing what's going on. You have to train yourself to think. Few days before your cycle, what's your behavior like? After your cycle, what's your behaviors like? Are this influenced by the food you eat? Some people are very, very weak and tired. after. And some people are energetic after. Some people before, they have the worst attitude ever, like horrible. And when you talk to them, they say, that's how I behave. But can you do better? Yes. And when it comes to women, we can do better. There's what we call premenstrual syndrome. It's very common in women. Before your menstrual cycle, you're going to have those mood changes. But how are you managing these symptoms? Do you just go around having your attitude everywhere and making things worse for other people or for yourself? So usually self-awareness is very important. To build it, you have to learn from your mistake. You literally have to sit down and ask yourself, is this benefiting me or benefiting the people around me? When you ask yourself those questions, you will have answers. And the food you eat also can play a role in your attitude. The food you eat, the environment you go to, and what you listen to. Those are all things you have to pay attention when it comes to creating self-awareness.
I wonder if on the topic of food, real quick, I have to ask, right? Is because you're a nurse, when it comes to like when you say the food you eat, because so when I was pregnant with my first child, I was like, oh, there would just be times I'm like, oh, I need chocolate because chocolate will boost my my mood. Because like
So
I know that
pregnancy,
once I have that chocolate, my mood is like completely different. Before then, I'm like angry. I have a bad attitude. I don't want to talk to
so
anyone.
okay, pregnancy, I don't joke with pregnancy. If you have to eat something to make you feel better, do it. Pregnancy is a life and death situation that you have to treat yourself with kindness, with care. You have to give yourself what it needs. However, if you have some medical issues that will prevent you from eating unhealthy, then you have to mentally train yourself. I can't have this because this can happen to me or my baby. That's another self-awareness. But having to eat too much carb food when you're going close to your menstrual cycle can throw off your hormones. That's what women don't understand. Rice throws off women's hormones a lot. What it does, it causes a cascade of inflammation. What I call inflammation is an injury. When I scratch myself, that's an injury. That's what we call inflammation. That inflammation is seen in your blood vessels. You can't see it. It's in your capillaries. They feel it. So when blood goes through those veins, those places that are injured, those blood are not getting good nutrients. So this is what causes a lot of health issues in our body. So carbs causes an increase in blood sugar level, and then that affects insulin, and the insulin causes a whole lot of inflammation response in our body. Like, it's a whole lot of stuff if I start going into medical terms and all that. But the plain truth is, I struggle a lot when it comes to food. I love food. Food is my love language. If you go to my Instagram page, I post food a lot. I love to eat, but I also take my health very, very important. I balance my food with mad exercises, and I try to also eat healthy, and I indulge sometimes. So in all of this, balance is the key. And knowing yourself.
Balance and know yourself. So my final question is it possible for a woman to have it all? And how can they be the mother they want to be while still being the, superwoman, super mama that they want to be as well?
They said money can do a lot of things.
Mm.
If I had millions of dollars available to me, I would say I can have it all and I can do it all. But I didn't have that much to do childcare. My kids were mostly at home. Between me and my husband, we had to do childcare because it was expensive. But if I had parents who were probably very rich, maybe it would have come close to me. And then I'll be able to afford childcare and have it all. and pursue my goals and wouldn't have to delay career. I've lost a lot. I lost a lot in 11 years of not pursuing my career. I know where I would have been by now. I'm literally just barely starting my career as a nurse practitioner. And meanwhile, I could have been a nurse practitioner 8 years ago, 9 years ago. But my mental health, my body could only handle raising my kids and doing certain things at some point in my life. So I actually waited till when I knew I could mentally and physically pursue my goals. Even when going back to school with my kids, it was still stressful. Even with being older, it was still stressful. But what I did, when they go to bed at 8, I'm up to sometimes 1 a.m. and I'm studying. And once I go to bed at 1, then 6 o'clock I'm awake and I go to work. So I only had 4 hours of sleep. Sometimes I will have 2 hours of sleep in 48 hours.
Wow.
But that was because I knew I had this deadline and I had to meet that deadline, and there was no way about it. Once I put myself through that stress, what I do next, I make sure there's food, there's water, there's everything ready for the kids, and I crash. Meaning sleep. You cannot put yourself under duress and not give it the rest that it needs. So I call it work hard and play harder. You work hard and you rest. That's just the key to womanhood. It's a lot of work, but it's doable and you can have it all. But you just have to know what's the resources that you have. And that will determine how much you can pursue, overtake, and recover.
Thank you so much, Nurse Tosin. I feel like this conversation has been so insightful. Where can people find you? I know you have 2 Instagrams, one for you, Nurse Tosin, and then another one for like
For
health
my
and wellness.
wellness. So nurse Tosin _lifestyle. That's my personal page where I do my regular thing. And then my wellness page for women, her overall wellness, HER overall, OVERALL wellness, her overall wellness. That's because I felt like women, whatever concerns a woman, it's spirituality, her mental health, and her physical body. That's what that means. If you can touch all of this in a woman's life, she will be productive, she will be useful, and she will bless her generation.
I love that. I love that. If you want more insightful tips and more insightfulness that Ms. Tosin has been given all throughout this podcast, please go follow those 2 pages. Thank you so much, Ms. Tosin, for joining us. And to my audience, please like, again, subscribe, and share. And we will see you next time on Busy Moms Get It Done.